On this episode of Locked On Angels, is anyone going to want to come to Anaheim to play for the Halos? Yeah, some fans, they're going to say, no, nobody wants to come here. Coming off the worst season in franchise history, is there any way for this team to draw a top free agent? We're going to talk about why the Angels still have a chance to sign a game changer and look at recent offseason history of other franchises to answer the question, who wants to come here? It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Make sure you watch the whole show before you comment. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Time to subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by our Locked On Everydayers Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase.
Happy Monday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, the third offseason as the host of Locked On Angels is in full swing, and we're here 5 days a week talking Angels baseball, Monday through Friday, every single weekday, till about mid-December. Then we'll do 3 days a week, but with some in-between content. But until then, you got us for 5 days a week. Later on this week, including tomorrow, we're starting to make the case, Mike. You know, over the last couple of years, we've done Making the Case, where we give you the pros and cons to some free agents out there, some trade targets out there. And so we're going to begin to pick that up on tomorrow's show. But today, on Monday's show, today is Monday, we're debunking the notion that the best players only go to the best teams, that 1 year, we're saying 1 year is all it takes to make a difference. And then we'll consider what would make a player want to play for the Angels in Anaheim in 2025. Mike, let's start with the idea that only the best free agents go to the best teams. Let's talk about why that's bunko, Mike. Debunk it. Let's go.
I thought is bunk bad or is bunk good?
I don't know.
Debunk? All right. So you've mentioned this often on this show, and I love this example. The one team we talk about is the Texas Rangers. They signed Marcus Semien and Corey Seager in the same offseason. In 2021, they're coming off, the Rangers are coming off a 60-102 record that season. 5th place in the AL West. John, their two best players that season were Nathaniel Lowe. He had a 112 OPS plus, pretty good. And Joey Gallo, who had a 138 OPS plus. Yeah. Gallo was traded to the Yankees at the deadline, and their best starter was a 33-year-old named Kyle Gibson.
That's right.
Had a 1.54 ERA plus over 19 starts, and he got traded at the trade deadline to the Cardinals. So, Johnny, how did the Rangers pull off signing two of the biggest middle infielder free agents that offseason?
Yeah, let's first look at what the GM of the Rangers, Chris Young, said. And then
I really like, by the way. I really like Chris Young. He seems to be a pretty brilliant GM. Former player, and now he's doing a great job in the front office.
Yeah, he's the president of baseball operations, and the former president of baseball operations, John Daniels. This is what they both had to say before that offseason got started. Around October 5th, when the season ended that year, MLB.com had an article from around then that said, General Manager Chris Young and the President of Baseball Operations, John Daniels, emphasized multiple times that the club would be active and aggressive in free agency. While Daniels wasn't able to give an exact dollar amount, he noted it would be consistent with the market and the fan base of this size, and that ownership is willing to support the club financially. We're going to be discussing players in every category, every position, and in every area of the market, Daniel said. There's nobody that we're going to rule out because of a perceived price tag. And then Chris Young added, I think we have some needs everywhere. I don't think we're going to limit ourselves in terms of ways to upgrade our roster. We're focused on committed focused and committed to exploring every possible way to improve the big league club and do it in a manner that is still disciplined and consistent with our long-term vision here of creating long-term championship windows. Mike, that sounds awfully familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah, I actually got kind of hopeful when I just read that, heard you read that. I mean, because that's the conversation that Angels management has had, right? And so
Yes.
maybe we're not that far off. I know that we like to drink the hopium as Angel fans, and so I don't want to drink too much of it. But John, let's take a look for a moment at the offseason. Oh, go ahead.
Real fast, I just want to say, it just goes to show that every GM says the same thing every offseason, and and so take it with a grain of salt if you want to, but maybe don't jump on, management or Perry Manassian and saying, oh, he says that every year. Every GM says it every year, and sometimes they do things and sometimes they don't, I guess.
Right. Okay, so let's look at the offseason predictions from MLB Trade Rumors that offseason, so from 2021 to 2022. So Marcus Semien was predicted to earn a 6-year deal at $138 million. MLB Trade Rumors predicted that the Red Sox, Dodgers, and the Angels were in on Semien. He signed a 7-year deal for $175 million with the Rangers that year. So 6 years, 138 was the prediction. Red Sox, Dodgers, Angels. He signed for 7 years, got 175 with the Rangers. It was the teams that they predicted. So that was the first big chip that offseason in Marcus Semien.
And it was an interesting market when Semien signed because Carlos Correa was available, Corey Seager was still out there, Javi Baez and Trevor Story were all out there and available, and Semien was the oldest one at 31 years old. But Mike, the real hook there was the fact that the Rangers were the only one willing to give him a 7-year deal over a 6-year deal, which everybody was predicting. Let's talk about the predictions for Corey Seager from MLB Trade Rumors. They predicted he would earn 10 years, $305 million. Each of the 3 MLB Trade Rumors writers predicted that it would be with the Yankees. Seager signed a 10-year deal with the Rangers for $325 million, the largest in franchise history. And then going back to that time period, let's take a look at what Corey Seager said. Why don't you read that for us?
Yeah, Seager said, knowing Chris Woodward, the Rangers manager at the time, who had been with LA, the meetings with John Daniels and Chris Young, knowing where they're coming from, and I'm coming home, it's a great fit. And so what resonated with Seager, he said that the Rangers are ready to go to build a team and want him to be a part of it, going out and getting players like Semien, Cole Calhoun, hey, how about that guy? And John Gray excited him as a player and something that he wanted to be a part of. Seager was asked what it meant that they're bringing in players like the ones that I mentioned, including Semien, and what did it signify to Seager? And he said that they're all in, that they want it now. And it's going to be a process. It's going to be a challenge. They have a lot of work to do, but the commitment and going out and getting guys shows that they're ready for this.
So what do we take away from this whole offseason? Semien, Seager, also John Gray, Cole Calhoun, stuff like that. Patience. These moves happened at the end of November and early December. In fact, they had to move quickly because, remember, the collective bargaining agreement was being renegotiated and it put everything into a lockout that winter. So I know that it's November 18th and we're all hankering for some big free agent signings, but know that the biggest moves that offseason were a race against time, and they didn't even happen until a few days before the lockout. Now, here's something else I want to mention. It takes that extra year. It takes that extra amount of money to be the one to get the deal done. Adding Semien and Seager, Semien got the extra year. Seager got the largest contract in Rangers history. And then adding Seager doesn't happen unless the Rangers added Semien. A big incentive for Seager was that signing Semien showed them that they were serious about contending. And then the smaller moves happened before the big ones, the John Grays, the Cole Calhouns, that sort of thing. Then what happened, Mike?
Yeah, the Rangers went 68 and 94 in 2022. Chris Young takes over as the president role in August from John Daniels. Chris Woodward was fired as the manager. Martin Perez comes in, and he is their best pitcher that year, followed by John Gray. And then the Rangers fix their pitching in 2023. They get Nate Eovaldi. They get Jacob deGrom. He got hurt, only had 6 starts. They got Andrew Haney, who had a 1.03 ERA plus. Dane Dunning, a 1.16 ERA plus. Again, Martin Perez had a 96 ERA plus. Gave them adequate starts. They weren't fantastic. They weren't great, but they were adequate. Right. Then they traded for Jordan Montgomery. They got Max Scherzer at the deadline. And then they made big improvements with some of their younger players, didn't they, John?
Yeah, the guys that they already had on the team, like Adolis Garcia and Jonah Heim, they stepped up. Mitch Garver came in and contributed at DH. They also had guys like Nathaniel Lowe, who was still a strong player. Then guys like Josh Young, Ezekiel Duran, and Evan Carter came up from the minors. And then, Mike, they went on to win the World Series.
Right.
And so that it was not great in 2022, even after those big free agent signings.
Yeah.
But it set them up for success the following year because they went, okay, this is ridiculous. We need pitching. Let's go get pitching.
Yeah.
And they were able to land somebody like Eovaldi and even deGrom as well. And we'll have a little bit more on that a little bit later on. But thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up on Locked On Angels, we're going to tell you how one single year makes all the difference in the world. We'll tell you what we mean by that in just a minute.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. They're America's #1 sportsbook. John, my nerd of a brother-in-law, he's not a nerd, he's actually a cool guy. He actually parlayed a $20 bet into a $3,000 bet on an NFL game. And so I'm like, hey, I thought I was your favorite brother-in-law. Hook a brother up, right?
Help me out here. Come on.
Did you use our promo code? You didn't use our promo code? And so I love that he's winning on FanDuel, and you can too. And right now, if you're a new customer, you can bet $5 and you can get $150 in bonus bets if you win. And if you're smart like my brother-in-law, you're going to win. And here's what's great about FanDuel is that when you make your bets, it's all on the same page where the stats are, where the games are, where the play-by-play is. And you don't have to wait until the game's going to start. You can actually make bets while the game is happening because new bets show up all of the time. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, new customers are going to get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more, and share your wisdom and your knowledge with your brother-in-law, please.
And your money.
And your money. We'll take it. FanDuel is the official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. All right, friends, we discussed the rule that everyone seems to think the best players only go to the best teams. Now, I know that happens sometimes, but it doesn't always happen.
Right.
And we made the case that Marcus Semien and Corey Seager went to, let me look that up again, the 60 and 102. Was that what it was here, Mike? Yep. 60 and 102 Rangers from 2021. The Angels were 63 and 99. So, man, nobody's going to want to come to Anaheim after a season. Oh, wait, no, that's not always true. And that's not always the case. Now, we talked about the Rangers. They signed their superstars. But what about a different team and a different level, quote unquote, of player? Not necessarily superstars, but more about addressing the needs of the team and then kind of accounting for, hey, we have some good guys here. They can be better next year. Let's talk about that, Mike.
Yeah, let's talk about the team that's, I think, the most obvious one to talk about. They didn't get the superstars, but they did get maybe a tier lower B-level players who actually did incredibly well for the Royals in 2024. They finished 86 and 76, second in the AL Central. They got a wild card spot. They beat the Orioles in the wild card series. The Orioles were a really good team. Lost to the Yanks in the division series. But what happened the year prior? They were 56 and 106.
Whew.
So a 30-game swing for the Royals in one off season. They were fifth in the AL. They had a first-year manager. They did have a lot of the same players in their lineup both seasons. So they had Salvi Perez. They had Bobby Witt Jr. They had, is it Maikel Garcia?
Maikel Garcia.
Maikel Garcia.
On my fantasy team this year.
Yeah, nice to pick up. MJ Melendez, Vinny Pasquantino, Freddie Fermin, Michael Massey, Kyle Isbell. I mean, a lot of guys that were on the team, but their pitching was was similar. They had some highly touted prospects as well, didn't they?
Yeah, well, Brady Singer, for sure. He was a top 100 arm before he made his debut. Never really was consistent. Had a great 2022, but from 2020 to 2023, he had a 4.49 ERA and a 98 ERA plus, meaning he was 2 ticks off from being just league average. He was 27-31 across 505 and 2/3 innings and 92 starts. Then, Mike, the Royals last year in 2023 acquired the Rangers, acquired Cole Reagans from the Rangers. They got the whole team. No, they acquired Cole Reagans from the Rangers for Aroldis Chapman. He had only been a reliever for the Rangers, and as a reliever for Texas, he had a 5.92 ERA in 17 games. That was good for 73 ERA plus, 27% worse than league average. Then he goes over to the Royals, gets in the rotation, pitches to a 2.64 ERA in 12 starts, goes 5-2, and has a 1.70 ERA plus in 2023.
So what did the Royals need to address over last offseason? Let's talk about hitting for a moment. They had an 86 weighted runs created plus, which was 28th in Major League Baseball. So this isn't 2024. This is 2023. Mm-hmm. They had an 11.5 FanGraphs WAR, which was 25th in baseball, 163 home runs, 26th in baseball, 6.9% walk rate, 29th in baseball, and a 700 OPS, which was 25th in baseball. And John, their starting pitching wasn't any better, right?
No, in 2023, they pitched to a 5.12 ERA. That was 27th in baseball, 7.3 FanGraphs wins above replacement. That was 26th in baseball, 7.29 Ks per nine, 28th in MLB. And then they pitched to, I'm using the FanGraphs stat here, a 1.14 ERA minus, meaning they were 14% worse than league average, 25th in Major League Baseball. Now, before we get to how they address the offseason, let me just make a note here. The Royals didn't change any of their coaching staff. They kept first-year manager Matt Quatraro. They kept all of the coaching staff and actually added a second pitching coach over the offseason. So it goes to show that they were really counting on a lot of their guys to take a step forward. So, Mike, how did they address the offseason from the offense perspective?
Well, they added some supplemental guys. So they got Hunter Renfroe, and he suddenly became somebody who could hit with runners in scoring position, especially against the Angels, but he couldn't do it for the Angels, but that's a whole nother show. They added Adam Frazier and then Garrett Hampson, and they really banked on their offense taking a step forward and having healthy seasons like Salvi Perez, Vinny Pasquantino, and Freddie Fermin. They were all able to share some time between DH and the position that they played. Perez actually played some first base too and did.
I think it was like 47 games or something like that.
Even in games where he wasn't catching, he was still making calls to the bullpen and telling the manager what to do. Pasquantino was also healthy this season. He only played 61 games in 2023.
Yeah. And then obviously Bobby Witt Jr. has the greatest season of his life.
Right.
He had a monster season, his breakout year. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but the pitching area was what they needed to address the most. And they did that by adding Seth Lugo. He had just come off his first full season as a starter with the Padres in 2023. Mind you, he was 33 years old in 2023. He signed with the Royals 2 years, $30 million, a relatively cheap deal, $15 million a year. Mm-hmm. It was also a career year for Lugo. So I'm sure a lot of Royals fans, just like Angels fans, went, don't go sign in a career year guy coming off a da-da-da-da-da. Oh, wait, no, they didn't do that. He actually is up for a Cy Young Award, and we'll find out on Wednesday if he's going to get that or not. They also signed Will Smith for the bullpen, but he was really bad this year. Yeah. And then, of course, they added Michael Wacha for the rotation. So 2 reliable starters in both Lugo and Wacha. They gave Brady Singer another chance and then let Cole Reagans be a full-time starter, same as they did in 2023. And then the results, Mike, were pretty great for their rotation, right?
Yeah, Singer had a 3.71 ERA with an ERA plus of 1.14. Reagans had a 3.14 ERA with a 1.35 ERA plus. Michael Wacha was 13-8 last year with a 3.35 ERA and a 1.26 ERA plus. And Lugo led their rotation with he had a 1-9 record.
No, sorry, that's a typo. I gotta look that up.
Yeah, that's not his record. I'm just reading it off the script here. He had 33 starts. I was like, that didn't sound right. 33 starts. He had a 3 ERA and a 1.41 ERA plus.
A 16-9 record.
I was going to say he's up for the Cy Young. He had 1-9 record. That doesn't sound right.
Leave me alone. It's late. No, I'm just kidding. So he 141 ERA plus. They also gave Alec Marsh a chance to start more in 2024. He got called up in June of 2023. Collectively, the pitching rotation had a 3.55 ERA, second in baseball behind the Mariners. We all know how good the Mariners rotation was.
Yeah. So in 1 year, everything changed for the Royals. 1 year, everything was different. So what changed? Well, a couple things. They believed in their core players, their young core players, and they counted on health from them as well. Does that sound familiar? They also had a mix of veterans, both hitters and pitchers, and young players. Bobby Witt Jr., of course, was the anchor of this offense. He had a breakout season. Ended the year with a 977 OPS after finishing with a 813 and 722 the year before. And he's going to start 2025 at only 24 years old. Only 24 years old.
So, we all know that the tune has changed on the Royals. Now, I know that there's some money stuff in terms of ownership. They're wondering about a new stadium. They're wondering about their TV deal. But here's the thing. They addressed their needs from 23 to 24. They got starting pitching. They added supplemental bats. They didn't add anybody impactful.
Yeah.
In fact, most of the impact came from guys that they already had who were coming off not great seasons other than Bobby Witt Jr. Salvi Perez had a decent season, right?
Yeah. And I think what we could say about what we saw them add in their starting pitching, for example, like all of us Angel fans went, that's a good move. Like both of those moves, that's a really good move. How come the Angels? I mean, I think a lot of our players were like, how come the Angels didn't do that?
Oh, we said that. Yeah.
That would have been a smart move. That would have been a smart move for the Angels to do. So I liked these moves. They were really smart on behalf of the Royals.
The only big splashes were the Waka and Lugo moves. They counted on the young players to take some strides and some steps forward. They didn't change the coaching staff. They didn't fire everybody after 1 year of losing 106 games. They actually added to it and provided some consistency in Matt Quatraro's second year. So that kind of gives us an idea of another approach the Angels could take, but also that players were willing to come to the Royals, even though they were coming off a pitiful 2023. We'll talk about why that is coming right up.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by Gametime, and they are obsessed with saving you money on getting tickets, and they want to get them to you faster and easier. And here's why. There's a lot of reasons that you should use Gametime. There's deals in their app. You can save up to 60%. They have zone deals. We've talked about this on Locked On Angels pretty often. But here's the number one reason why you should get tickets from Gametime. If you happen to get tickets to, let's say, a Mike Tyson fight, and the fights before the Tyson fight are fantastic. But then you get to the main event, and it's Mike Tyson against Jake Paul, and it's terrible. What you're going to do is you're going to go, well, I use Gametime, and I save money on these tickets, so I didn't spend what this knucklehead next to me spent, and you're going to feel better about yourself. That's what I love about Gametime, right? And by the way, I'll take my scripted WWE over any terrible boxing match
100%.
anytime, right? Come on. So Gametime is on your side, and then what I love about Gametime is they've got great Gametime ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, and they're on your team if you have any issues. They're happy to help you resolve those issues. So take all the guesswork out. Be the smart ticket buyer. Don't spend all of the money and then go see a terrible boxing match. Spend some of the money and then enjoy everything leading up to that match, and then call yourself a smart ticket buyer by downloading the Gametime app today. You can use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, the promo code is LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. What time is it? Gametime.
So how about the Halos, Mike? We've talked about the Rangers, their ability to add superstars, even though they had a terrible 2021. We've talked about the Royals and their ability to address the needs that they had within the team. They counted on players that they already had, and they added players who weren't superstars, but more reliable arms. In fact, the Rangers had a bad 2022, even with Semien and Seager on the team. Then they went out and addressed that need in 2023 by convincing Jacob deGrom to come to Texas and also Nathan Eovaldi to come to Texas. despite their bad 2022 record. And then they won it all in 2023.
Yeah, Royals turned their reputation around in just 1 year by getting players that addressed their needs. They counted on health and taking steps forward from their young core. So, Johnny, will players want to come to the Angels, and what will it take?
All right, here's what it's going to take. If people want to come to Anaheim, here's what Perry Minasi and Artie Moreno are going to have to do. The extra year, the extra dollars, all of that matters. Mike, even taking a risk on somebody matters. Seager got the extra money, the largest Rangers contract. Semien got the extra year. And then Jacob deGrom was a risk, and he knew he was a risk.
Yeah.
That the Rangers took. They took it on. They took on that gamble. And you know what? The risk went against him. He only got 6 starts, but they were able to pivot and make some moves and some changes and get to the World Series and win it all in 2023. The Royals paid Seth Lugo and told him, hey, you're going to be the starter. You're going to be a full-time starter. I know you've been in relief. You're going to start for us. Even though you're 34, even though that's a risk, we're going to trust that you can be the guy who's going to lead our rotation.
And the brilliance behind that is that Lugo throws a lot of pitches. And so they were able to utilize all of the pitches he's been working on in the starting rotation. You don't want to use too many when you're coming out of the bullpen, but as a starter, you want to keep people off balance. And so that was a brilliant move. Somebody identified that in a conversation with Seth Lugo and said, this guy should be a starter for us because I think he'll actually be a winner for us. Now, also, what needs to happen is you need to show free agents that you're willing to build something. Seager knew, and he said that the Rangers were working towards contending again. They got John Gray, Marcus Semien. They even got Cole Calhoun. And then Seth Lugo said that he joined the Royals because they put up professional at-bats against him, even when they were bad. So when he was pitching against him, he was like, these guys are really competitive. They're really trying hard. And he said playing in the infield with a Bobby Witt and a Garcia and a Pasquantino, that really incentivized it. Like, I would love to play with these guys playing behind me.
Yeah, that he knew that if he's going to induce a ground ball, it's going to be snatched up by that infield. And so that was some incentive as well. The players who are already on the team incentivized Seth Lugo to want to come to the Royals. Now, this is something that fans don't often consider, and I'm not just saying, us or listeners or anything. I'm saying a lot of baseball fans don't consider this. The team needs to know the needs and desires of the particular player that they are signing. Here's a great example, Mike. The Royals signed Michael Wacha to a 3-year extension on November 4th, just a few days ago. Here's what he had to say. He said, from the article, it said, Wacha said he and his family, his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Marcia, fell in love with Kansas City this year. But here's the kicker. Just the way the season went throughout the summer, we fell in love with the city, the team, the staff here, and everyone involved at the stadium. It was something where we didn't want to go somewhere else. We'd been bouncing around a little bit through different teams the past few years, and to find a place that really felt like home, that we could buy a house and get settled for the next few years, it was honestly a no-brainer. It was important to get it done before the free agency stuff opened up. So again, he signed that extension before his contract expired next year, and being in Kansas City helped him want to be there permanently. But what I really want to drill down into is he's got a 2-year-old daughter. He's married. They've been bouncing around from team to team to team to team. They wanted to settle down, and they found out that Kansas City is a great place for their family and for them to buy a home, get settled. And I feel like that is something that goes completely missed when we talk about free agency, right?
Yeah, it does. And families matter. And just it hit me
it's
as you read.
It's a rare condition this day and age.
It hit me when you said, like, gosh, to be able to settle down for the next few years, which means they're probably not going to be settled for the few years after that, depending on if he continues to play. And that's the life of being an athlete, right? And I understand that. But that's a factor that plays into anybody signing anywhere. So, John, as we talk through this, where do you land? What's your summation of all of this? Where do you think our everydayers should land when it comes to will players want to come to Anaheim?
I think obviously Artie Moreno is the huge factor here. People see that he hasn't always put the pieces around this team to make them good, and he's relied on one or two superstars to try and incentivize people to watch the Angels, go to games, things like that. I think now that Perry Manassian is here and they have a young core of players who are only going to take steps forward year over year over year, plus a lot of minor league guys that we haven't seen yet can come up and contribute as well. They need I've said this all offseason, they need their difference makers, Mike. And in order to convince a difference maker to come here, you're going to have to add that extra year. You're going to have to spend a little bit more money, and you're going to have to incentivize the fact that Southern California is a pretty great place to live and maybe raise a family here and maybe meet your needs in that way. So to me, I understand that like maybe they aren't going to go all out and spend buku bucks on a Juan Soto,
Sure.
right? But that does feel like a typical Artie move from past history. But I will say this. I think that pretty much any free agent can be on the table. Now, whether they will get them or not, obviously the player has to pick where they want to be. But I'll say this. I think if the Angels can look at the history of the Rangers and the Royals and also consider what they have to offer to the players and incentivize that when they meet with these players, I think they have just as good of a chance as anybody else, Mike. I think they have the same chances of landing someone aside from the record, aside from this, that, other nonsense. It really comes down to the player and if they're a good match for the team and if the player wants to be there. I think that the Angels aren't out of the running like people always say.
Yeah, and I think what they've already done is what these teams, the Rangers and the Royals, have done the last few off seasons. They've already done some of the back of the end roster building, right? Travis d'Arnaud wants Logan O'Hoppe off of his feet and be the best catcher in the entire Angels franchise. And then you've got guys like Kyle Hendricks, who certainly isn't the guy who's going to light it up on the mound, but he certainly is somebody that people want to be around. And then you have somebody like Newman. They signed him as a backup guy. Kevin Newman is going to be somebody that's going to fill in around the infield and actually be somebody that will be a major league caliber player when the players aren't able to be on the field or give them a day off. And so the Angels have already backfilled the roster. If they stop here, then yeah, we have a right to be like, come on, we're frustrated. But I think that what this backfilling of the roster has shown us is that they're going to start front filling the roster, maybe not with the major players, but definitely the A-, B+ players that could help them win next season.
You know, I'm interested to consider Seth Lugo's comment about, I played against the Royals when I was with the Padres, and I was like, man, these guys are actually pretty good. Yeah. I wonder who had that thought when they faced Logan O'Hoppe or Zach Neto or even somebody like Joe Adell or Taylor Ward, that sort of thing. I wonder who out there might have had that thought and then wants to join up with them and sees that there's a good young group of players who just need that next bat, that next arm, that next step forward to help really bring the Halos somewhere successful in 2025.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB with our friend Sully. He's bringing a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor throughout the entire offseason. You can find his show on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey, give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to today's show on YouTube. Find the episode, get in the conversation by jumping down into the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe button on your way down there. That really helps out Mike and I and our channel. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
We are going to start our off-season making the case. Who are we going to make the case for? Well, you need to tune in tomorrow on Locked On Angels to find out. We're going to talk about that on Tuesday, so come and join us.
Looking forward to that. Pros, cons, and will the Angels do it? Should they do it? We'll talk about all of that when we talk about making the case. And again, tune in to find out who. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Tuesday.
Who are you? Who?
I was going to say, as days go by.